So the story. To tell you a little bit about myself. Again, I'm a daughter of a pastor. My brother's a pastor. I'm a preacher's wife. My grandfather was a pastor. So I tell you that to say I've been in church all my life. I grew up rather sheltered in that I wasn't a latchkey kid. So at the end of the day, it wasn't me and my brother at home by ourselves. We were with my parents or my siblings. We really led a sheltered life. I was either at church or school at all times or with my parents. I was active in the community and the church and never gave my parents what I think were any real problems. So that's my version. If you call them and ask them, I hope they would agree. For all intents and purposes, I followed the plan. Okay? When I was a little girl, my mother would always tell me, you will graduate from college, you will have a job, you will have a car, you will have your own place before you ever think about getting married and having children. That's the big thing I remember her saying most of my life. And now that I look back, I did exactly that. So the day I graduated from the University of Dayton, I had a job. I bought a car right after I graduated. By August of the same year, I had bought a house. A few months later, I had the opportunity to travel to Ireland with UD, and I spent 8 weeks in Ireland. So as I thought about it, my mother had planted a seed. She had planted a seed of a plan, but she had also planted a seed of expectation. My expectation was things would go as planned, right? So I'm a graduate of UD, I had a job, I had traveled, and I met my first boyfriend and married my first boyfriend. And it's still him. Okay. Like there's no other. It's not like where's the shoe drop. So Bryant was my first boyfriend, and we got married. We had a very short courtship. We were a little older in that we were 28, 29, so we had done the dating thing. He had done the dating thing. And I always wanted to be married, right? Because of the what? The plan. The plan. And so I wasn't interested in dating, which was great because me and my husband met in September. By the end of that first week, I had registered on the wedding website. I knew. We met in September. He kind of asked in November, putting all his business out here. I didn't run the speech by him at all. By January, I had a ring, and by next November, we had been married. It'll be 14 years next month. The claps are for you, babe. So I had done the plan, and after 2 years, I remember the night I found out I was pregnant. And I was in great anticipation of when he got home to say, guess what? Right? So it was in October of that year, he came in the house and I was sitting there looking all silly, you know, and I told him we're going to have a baby. And it was right according to plan. Except for rather quickly, something started to go wrong. And before I knew it, I was losing the baby. And I actually miscarried on our anniversary. And I tell you that to say that wasn't part of the plan. No one had said there will be loss and there will be challenges even when you follow a plan, right? So there was my first pause. I remember thinking and praying, God, what does it mean when I did it the way that everybody said it was supposed to be done and it didn't come out the way that it's supposed to come out? But I remember the small voice saying, things happen, right? We've never been promised of all ups, no downs. Me and my husband talked about it, and we thought, it's okay, we're going to get through this. And we just kept putting one step in front of the other. And within a year, I was pregnant again. So we look, babe, guess what? You got to keep a job. No, it's just a joke. But I was excited. I felt like God had redeemed us in some way, and that the plan was still there. It was still, we had done what we were supposed to do. Remember, I'm in church this whole time, 33 years in ministry. I'm doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing. And one day, things were not okay. And one night, in the middle of the night at 18 weeks, my water broke. And I remember at the time, I was crying and my dog was crying. And my husband was like, one of y'all has got to stop. Like, either the dog has got to stop. It was just such sadness about what is about to happen. And so I went to the hospital, and the doctor said, you have two options. You can either abort, or you're people of faith, right? The plan is if you have faith, things will work out. You will need to stay in the hospital for 8 weeks on the left side of your body. No rotating, no turning. You'll have to be completely still for 8 weeks. And I looked at him and I said, I believe in our faith. And so we're going to do this. And he said, you know, I can't tell you what to do with your body. And if you want to do this, I'm with you. And if you know, whatever your decision. And so I prayed and I told God, I'm going to do what I can. I'm do my part to get her here safely. So to tell you a little bit about what was going on, and I'm going to get to a point. I'm working my way to a point. When the water broke, I needed an IV. And so they struggled getting an IV in my arm. I got shot 13 times in this arm, trying to put an IV in. And I looked at my husband and I said, I can't. I thought I could, I can't. They tried my neck. They tried my wrist, all up in my arm. And I said, I don't think I can do this. They called in Care Flight. They called in the anesthesiologist, the head of anesthesiology. They called in the director of nursing, the head of surgery. No one could get an IV in. And so, well, maybe this is God's answer. And a woman walked in and said, it was me and my husband, we were sitting there and he was praying and I was crying. And she said, do you mind if I try? And we both looked, and I said, yeah, but this is it. If this is going to happen, it's going to work. And I promise you, she took 2 seconds and put the IV in and said, God bless you, and walked away. It was just like a little tap or prick. She walked away. So they got me, they got fluids in me, got me ready to go, got me to the room. It had been about 2 days and the IV popped. And so I said, where's the nurse? And I can't remember her name at this time, but we kept saying, no, let's say Patty. Nurse Patty put it in. Here's what time she worked. Can you find her? And they were like, we have no Nurse Patty. To this day, Miami Valley Hospital has no record of this nurse. Not how I described her looks, not her hair, not her statue, no Nurse Patty. So that's the first time I felt like God showed up and said, I'm going to take care of you. So I stayed in the hospital on my left side for 8 weeks. And every day, my mother would bring things for me to do. I colored. Believe it or not, this was 12 years ago, and this was before iPads and iPhones. So my mother, one day I was crying, and she said, what do you need? I said, a portable DVD player with some DVDs. And she said, okay, I'm going to get you a portable DVD player. And so that's when that first just came out. So I laid on my left side, And I would watch videos where she brought me coloring books. I would color on my left side and stay on my left side. I stopped asking people to stop by because they were so sad. And I wanted people to walk in the room who have the same faith that I did. Because the plan was, if you have faith, everything works out. So I wanted that spirit in my room. I wanted people of faith, people of belief. Me and my husband, we were believing God for her life. And so on the last day of the 8th week, I made it. The doctor came in and he said, you get to go home. You laid here, the rip in your body that caused so my water broke because she had poked through and ripped me open. So they said that hasn't plugged up, but at 26 weeks she's viable. Her hearing and everything is fine. So you can go home. So I called my mother, my husband. Oh my God, I guess we get to go home. It was a Saturday. I said, can I use the bathroom? I really got to use the bathroom. And they said, yeah, and I went to the bathroom. And there she was. I lost her in the bathroom. On the 26th week of her life. I stayed in the hospital for 8 weeks. And on the last day, there she was. Her name was Daria V. Graham. I pulled the lever to say something was wrong, and when the nurses and everybody came running in, all I knew was to start singing, right? So I started singing as loud as I could. Think about his love, think about his goodness, think about his grace that brought us through. For as high as the heaven above, so great is your love for us. Great is your mercy for us. I haven't sang that in 12 years. So the doctor says, you've got to shut up. I can't hear your heartbeat. I can't focus. You've got to shut up. And I was like, think about his love. Think about his goodness. I was like, you're not shutting me up. The more I sing, the less I have to listen to what's really going on. And so they hauled me off to surgery. And I remember waking up and tearing up a hospital room. If it wasn't, I tore that place up. I was in such anguish, right? Because the plan, and to think about the impact of laying on your left side for 8 weeks. 8 weeks. Bigger than that, I had done all that I was supposed to do. My plan, I laid it out, I'd done everything I felt like God had asked me to do. I'm married as a virgin. That's almost unheard of sometimes. I did all I was supposed to do and lost my child. So we get home, and literally the nights are filled with me screaming. I just had such anguish. All I knew to do was moan and scream, and some of it was my body because my left side was now deteriorated, so my husband had to sit me up and lay me down. I couldn't do that on my own. That took about a month. And then just the idea of when we got closer to 26 weeks, people had started furnishing her room. So I'm laying across a fully furnished room with clothes. And besides that, you talk about an intersection of your life and faith. Where do I go now? What do I do now? I'm telling people, I'm not only living a life of faith, I'm trying to tell people about this faith. Am I a fraud? Is it real? What have I done? And I remember my husband saying, the very person you're mad at is the only one who has the answers. And he laid a Bible down next to me and walked out of the room. And I thought, I'm going to throw this Bible at you. Bible. So I picked up the Bible and opened it, and it opened up at Job. Anybody familiar with the story of Job? And I thought, God, I got a little more angry. Like, you could have eased me into an answer. You didn't have to. We could have gone from Psalms to Proverbs. And then Job, like, you could have started me out with a little praise and worship. No, you went straight to Job. And here's what I want to share with you that I remember in that night. If you don't know about Job, Job lost everything. Satan came to Job, God, and God said, you can try my servant Job, but don't kill him. Right? Don't kill him. And Job lost everything. He lost his children, his belongings, his whole life. Job refused to curse God. His wife said, curse God and die. His friends said, it must be something that you did. And God speaks to Job and says, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, since you know so much. This is the passage I opened up at. Who decided on the size of the earth? Certainly you know so much. Who came up with the blueprints and the measurements? How its foundation is poured, and who set the cornerstone? While the morning stars sang in chorus and the angels spoke praise, have you ordered morning to get up, or ever told dawn to go to work? What do you know about death? Do you have one clue regarding those dark mysteries? Do you have any idea how large the earth is? Speak up if you know the answer. Do you know where light comes from and where darkness lives? Can you take them by the hand and lead them home when they get lost? Why, of course, you know that. You've known all your life, grown up in the same neighborhood as lightness and darkness. Have you ever traveled to where snow is made? Seen the vault where hail is stockpiled? I mean, for 4 chapters, God asked Job, where were you when I was designing the world in your life? I remember laying back in the bed and feeling like I'd been hit by a brick. What if it was true that what we were going through, what I was going through, was for someone else? The last night of the hospital, a nurse came in. I was dead, I was asleep, and she said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. She said, I heard you had a miscarriage. And I said, I did. She said, well, I had one too yesterday, and I hadn't even told my husband I was pregnant. And I was just wondering, how do I tell him? And I thought, really, God? Really? So we talked. When I got home, I found out that the doctor had done some procedures that he hadn't asked Miami Valley to do, and actually was suspended from Miami Valley for a month. But his thing was, I'm not going to let her wake up and give her all bad news. I need to wake her up and then tell her, you've lost her, but I've done what's necessary for you never to have to go through this again. So what if it was true that I went through that so that I could be of support to someone else? What if it was true that I had gone through something just to make me stronger and to make us stronger together? And what if this was a part of a story that was going to make me wiser and better? In the end, Job got double. God doubly blessed him for staying faithful. And in the end, we had 2 beautiful children, Daria and Benjamin. But what if I had gotten stuck at the pause? The pause is disappointment, frustration, loss, or your life not working out the way that you felt like it's supposed to. When I think of that story, not everybody may be able to relate to the loss of a child, but you may be able to relate to some kind of other disappointment. Whether it's your family not being the way that you had hoped it would be, or your life not panning out just exactly how you had thought, or losing someone that you ask God, why? Tonight I wanted to share with you that the one thing I would suggest is allow it to be a pause, but don't get stuck. I had people in my life who said, just put one step in front of the other. You may not know what life entails, Faith is about making the step and not knowing what's next. Faith isn't about the plan. Faith is about the unplanned. About staying active, staying moving, even when it doesn't feel like that's something you want to do, or you don't see where it's going to pay off for you. I had suffered a blow, and I had no idea to move past it. I didn't know whether or how to go on. My grief had made me pause and say, what now? In that moment, I told God, all I knew to do was to keep pushing. Instead of doing nothing, barricading myself in my room, pushing my husband away, I would at least stay busy. I would persist. I didn't know where my steps were leading, but I would just step. Sometimes it was harder than others. I would end up in Deborah's office crying, or at home, screaming again. But that's the nature of the struggle. There are days when the sadness might be palatable, but the challenge is not to become stuck. A pause doesn't have to be permanent. It can just be a pause. So when I got pregnant again, people had opinions. But I had done what I knew to do, which was to not get stuck. I heard a friend put it this way. Pastor Sam, have you ever bitten into a bar of butter? Anybody ever just eat butter? Oh my gosh, was it good? It was good? Okay, there's only 2 of you. Everybody else thinks that's gross. Has anybody just drank some raw eggs? Just to the head. Would anybody do it if I had a cup of eggs up here? Would you be eager to drink it? What about flour? If I had a cup of flour and said, here, no milk chaser. Right? Individually, these items are not appealing or appetizing, but put them together, they can be some of the best things we've ever tasted. Sometimes our life are about those individual things that by themselves really hurt. But if we allow God to put it together, He can make something beautiful out of your pain, out of your frustration, out of your disappointment. Failure, loss, disappointment, denial, unmet expectations can be pauses, but they don't have to be permanent. Individually, these may always hurt. They may always bring feelings of abandonment. They may always make you question some things. But faith is an action. It's when we put one step in front of the other and we tell God, I trust you. Faith is realizing that our story may not just be about ourselves, but could possibly be to help someone else. That nurse that came to me late that night. And lastly, faith is about trusting in the end product. You may not trust the butter, the eggs, or the flour, but you can trust the cake. The hardships of life make us stronger. They form our story. That was never promised to be easy, but it situates us to be grateful and to be strong.